What if you could find actual, physical proof of a story that's been frozen in time for almost 2,000 years? Well, that's exactly what we're doing today. We're diving headfirst into a scientific quest to get to the bottom of a massive, cataclysmic event from ancient Mesoamerica, a story of total darkness that science is only just now starting to piece together. So, our story really kicks off with one of the most powerful forces on the entire planet. I'm talking about a major volcanic eruption. You know, the kind that can blast so much ash and gas into the atmosphere that it can literally change the climate and plunge huge parts of the world into darkness. And that right there brings us to the heart of our mystery. See, there's this ancient Mesoamerican text that describes a terrifying event. And a key detail is 3 days of thick, impenetrable darkness. So the big question is it even possible? Could we actually find the physical fingerprint of that disaster 2,000 years later using today's science? All right, part one, an ancient cataclysm. Our whole investigation really starts with one specific historical account from a text called 3 Nephi. Okay, so this text, it talks about a huge storm, earthquakes, the whole 9 yards. But the really critical part is this description of a vapor of darkness. It was supposedly so thick that you couldn't light a candle or a torch, nothing, for 3 straight days. You know, when geologists read a description like that, their minds immediately jump to one thing: a massive volcanic eruption. Okay, part two, history in the ice. So how on earth do you even begin to look for evidence of a 2,000-year-old event? Well, the answer, believe it or not, lies in a frozen archive at the literal ends of the Earth. The key to this whole investigation is something called an ice core. Seriously, just think of it like a time capsule made of ice. Every single year, snow falls, gets packed down, and it traps these tiny bubbles of the atmosphere, dust, volcanic ash, you name it. So by drilling way down into the massive ice sheets in places like Greenland and Antarctica, we can literally pull up a year-by-year history of our planet's atmosphere. And it's incredible. It's kind of like counting tree rings, right? You can actually see the distinct layers from each year's snowfall. So scientists can just meticulously count these layers backward, year by year, creating this super precise calendar of what was happening in the atmosphere, stretching back for thousands and thousands of years. Part 3, the volcanic fingerprint. So we've got this amazing ice record. But what exactly is the signal that scientists are looking for in all those layers? Okay, so here's how it works. When a big volcano erupts, it blasts tons of gases, especially sulfur dioxide, way up into the stratosphere. From there, global wind patterns just take over and carry these gases all the way to the poles. Up there, they mix with moisture, turn into sulfuric acid, and then fall down with the snow. And boom, you get this super acidic layer of ice for that specific year. It's like a bright red flag saying a major eruption happened right here. And this is what's so cool about it. This diagram really shows that global journey. Even an eruption happening way down in the tropics, near the equator, can shoot its stuff high enough into the stratosphere to get carried thousands of miles away. It ends up getting dropped on the polar ice caps, leaving behind a permanent record of the event. All right, part 4, uncovering the evidence. Let's get to the good stuff. What did investigators actually find when they analyzed these ice cores from both poles, zeroing in on the early 1st century? So first up, in an ice core from Greenland called Camp Century, they found a really clear spike in acidity. They dated it to around AD 38. Now, that's pretty promising. But here's the catch. The dating back then has a margin of error of about 30 to 40 years. So it's definitely in the right ballpark, but it's not quite a smoking gun just yet. But then they found more. Another core from Greenland, this one called Dye 3, showed a signal around AD 47. And here's the really compelling part. A core from the complete opposite side of the planet, down in Antarctica, had a clear volcanic signal at AD 46. Now, finding signals in both hemispheres around the same time, that really strengthens the case that a huge, probably tropical, volcanic event went down. Okay, part 5, complexities in the core. Now, this is where we get a peek into how real science actually works. It's almost never about finding one single perfect smoking gun, because the ice core record, well, it's not perfect. I mean, scientists are up against a whole bunch of challenges. You've got the dating errors we talked about. Then there's this constant background noise from tons of smaller eruptions that can kind of hide the signal from a big one. And get this, A giant eruption far away could actually leave a smaller acid spike than a little one right nearby. Plus, weather. Sometimes wind patterns or a lack of snow means the evidence never even gets recorded. It's just the messy, complicated reality of trying to piece together history from a frozen archive.
So, part 6, an unsolved mystery. After looking at all the clues and wrestling with all those complications, where do we stand? What's the final verdict on all this? So let's just connect the two worlds of our story for a second. Over here, you have Mesoamerica, which just happens to be the second most volcanically active region on the planet, the potential ground zero for our ancient event. And then, way over here, you have the frozen labs at the poles, where scientists are digging for its faint, distant echo.
And this is a big one. Completely separate from the ice cores, geologists have found physical evidence of a decent-sized eruption right there in Mesoamerica, at a volcano called Tucana. And the best part? The date they got for it was sometime between AD 25 and AD 72, which is a perfect match for the time frame we're looking at.
So let's be super clear. There isn't one single piece of evidence that says, yep, this is it. It absolutely happened. Science rarely works that way, It hardly ever gives you that kind of 100% certainty. But what we do have are multiple, completely independent lines of evidence. You've got the ancient text, you've got the acid spikes in the polar ice, and you have the geological findings from the region itself, and they are all pointing in the same direction.
Look, it's not absolute proof, but it is incredibly compelling corroboration. It shows us that these ancient stories, maybe they aren't just myths. Maybe they're actual eyewitness accounts of real, world-changing events. And it really leaves you wondering, right? How many other histories that we've dismissed as just legends are out there, just waiting for science to find their echo, frozen in the ice?